Awesome, awesome. Awesome, awesome. That's our favorite word, you know. I see you. When I edit, you can say, it's like, awesome.
Everything is awesome. What show is that from?
Lego.
Lego?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is awesome. Yes.
Okay.
It is awesome.
I'm trying to figure out if I can see who are the subscribers. If I can see who are the subscribers, then I'll be able to target the reward, you know, if we do any kind of promotion.
Is that possible?
Mm-hmm. Well, I did a quick look up on YouTube this morning. Not YouTube, Googled it. And sounded like there is a way to tell you who specifically subscribed.
Should be able to, since they have membership to YouTube.
Yeah, it'd be weird. Yeah, it'd be weird that you have a channel and you don't know who your subscribers are. Anyhow, it's not easy to find, but you can find it apparently.
I would imagine that would be just the analytics that YouTube would just be able to
Give it to you.
Give it to you because it should be part of the big data.
Yeah, yeah. Anyhow, we have three screening today.
Yes, I'm excited about the first one for sure. It's just that it seems like her story is very dynamic. In that, you know, she seemed to have had a little bit of a rough upbringing, and how she made some mental choices, I guess, on how she wanted to perceive those.
This is from her testimony?
You think I already know her, huh? I got to do my research. I already read her freebie part of the book.
Oh, okay.
You think I'm making it up?
I don't know.
Does it sound good?
I don't know if I can say BS on this podcast, but okay. Okay, good. Kudos to you. Okay, anyhow.
No BS.
Did you spend just as much time on the other ones?
If they have materials.
Okay. All right.
That I can turf up. I mean, I'm not CIA.
You just bragged about that you are, but now you say you're not.
I'm not CIA.
Just FBI.
Just FBI.
Okay. All right. What else we're doing today? Yeah, so anyhow, debrief on the previous episodes. So far we have, of course, our own episode 0. Actually got quite a bit of view.
What do you think about it now, looking back? What do you think about how we did, considering it's our very first one?
Well, episode 0 audio, I sounded horrible, but I sounded better in the subsequent one. I think it went well. Maybe the format might be a little bit long. I don't know people's attention spans that long on YouTube, but when you have short attention span, it's also hard to get in depth, right? So it's a trade-off. But I think
episode 0.
Any of the episode, because I looked at the average. Well, I don't know. I can't speak to every viewer, but on average, each episode viewing time per view is about 5 minutes. Okay, so there is my guess is there are probably a few very long view and a lot of short views. The short view just find out what this is about, whether they're interested in it or not, which is a little bit unfortunate because there's a lot of good wisdom and materials that happens further into the episode. Yeah, some episodes are much more prepared because you know them, right? Like episode 3 and 4. Those are definitely the best episode. I'm surprised episode 4, which is part 2 of episode 3, did not do as well as episode 3. Basically, part 2, you would expect part 2 to be very good.
I thought it's at least gaining traction because sometimes, people are like, okay, I've seen it. If they really watched part 2, they are really interested in the story. Because if they just wanted to see how, I'm a friend of Denise or I'm a friend of Larry's and I'm popping on to see what's happening, you saw it in the first episode, right? So I feel like the second episode...
Actually, first episode, strangely enough, has the best audio download. So what may appear boring to people based on the YouTube analytics, the audio podcast is doing extremely well. So I think one lesson I learned is what's necessarily good for video is not necessarily good for audio in terms of retaining attention of the listener or the viewer. And it's also long format lends itself well for audio, but it does not lend itself well to video, generally speaking.
I don't know if I personally agree with that, because if I sit down with YouTube, I intend to watch.
If you sit down.
If I sit down.
That
So,
is, yeah.
I mean, you have to assume people who is on YouTube is intending to sit down to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the YouTubers. They sit down to watch. I won't necessarily, it's going to put my headphones on, and if I'm not commuting or whatever, just for the audio, because I prefer video. I prefer watching, especially telling stories of people. I prefer the video. And I don't know if I couldn't handle 30 minutes. I mean, a sitcom is 30 minutes. I don't know.
I don't know if you noticed some of the YouTube, in each of the videos, you can put like a little link to certain segment of the video. So for example, if you want to say,
You tag the
yeah, so I just say question 1 is this. If you're interested to this question, you click on that and you jump to it. So you put all the questions in the info. So for
But if I'm watching it from TV, if I'm watching on computer, I think clicking is easy. On TV, it's not so easy to click.
I don't know how many people actually watch on the TV. I think most people watch on computer, iPad.
Really? That's a good point. Actually, we can
with
dig up
Apple TV,
analytics.
it's easy.
We can probably dig up analytics on that. Okay, I see. So those are additional YouTube features that we could probably leverage to make it a little easier. Okay, well that's good. Yeah. So when I ask interesting things, when I ask, go solicit more podcast guests, there's all kinds of interesting stuff. That some of them are not good for the show.
Oh, really? Like Crystal,
Wow.
Aura.
It's not our thing, right? That's not our
It's
thing.
not alignment with what we are trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, those episodes, I find, all the episodes are good, very in depth. I learn a lot, just editing.
So what did you learn? What did you learn? I'm interested to hear y'all's perspective. Like episode 1, Lee Lincoln. She's our very first guest on the podcast.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, she, has the lowest view. But I said, I'm just interested in what you guys thought about Lee Lincoln's. She's our first podcast guest that we did over Zoom. And I find her story to be really interesting and something that I am reminded of as I move forward with this podcasting thing. So before I say what it is that I was, impacted by, what do y'all think about the episode? What did you learn from her?
I think of all the episodes that you guys recorded, I thought she's probably one or two good videos that got a lot of information out of it. But, like you said, it's kind of interesting that I guess at this time, 62 views as opposed to the others. Some of the others, but I thought it was not as informational or not as packed with a story. It's kind of interesting.
What part of the story were you interested in?
Just the part that she was just, every time she's trying to raise her hand, get attention, asking her questions, but just being ignored totally. And, just that part was, interesting and get you to think, well, what happened next? She had a story that, you want to kind of stick around and listen to what happened next. Whereas some others is like, okay, well, I kind of see what's coming already.
Well, I learned the most from her about the downward spiral cycle. I thought that was a good way of describing how people become homeless. And it put a different perspective on how we view the homeless, because at the end of the day, at the end of the episode, the conclusion was anyone can become homeless if you get caught in a downward spiral. And so that's eye-opening, and that ought to, if anything, give everybody a little bit of warning. Get caught in that, you end up on the street. So number one is don't get caught up in that kind of downward spiral cycle. Two is, well, people who got there don't automatically assume the worst, because they may come from a position that was similar to you. I think she mentioned there was a doctor.
Yeah,
That she found
the medical student loan
or
debt. Yeah.
Okay, well that's insightful. I think one of the things that we could probably do to elevate visibility, we did formally launch only 3 episodes in, and she's episode 1, so there's a bit of a disadvantage. I think YouTube prioritize is showing, promoting what puts on a podcast first, what puts out there first. It's always the newest thing, right? The newest thing tend to get the first. So what we could probably do is promote her episode through advertisement, or there's a feature that we can promote. It's almost like a banner you put up. Say, this is what we're featuring this week.
Yeah. Well, I think that for me on her episode, that was a lesson for me is, coming from a, faith background, how she said that, she wasn't heard. But the moment she ended up publishing a book out of that situation, she suddenly became an expert. And that if God wants her to have a floor to speak, He'll give it to her. And so that I thought that was interesting, that she couldn't be put in a corner.
Okay. All right. So who do we have next? We had
Daniel.
Daniel's stories is when we at first thought about his story, we wasn't sure what the real storyline is. But we do know he had a very traumatic experience that I guess you could say is life-defining moment that potentially probably did change the trajectory of his life in a certain direction. And following his story, we see different people that come in and help him along the way. And also, he himself has a certain gumption to make sure that he gets out of it and become better. It's that combination. So what y'all get out of it?
I feel this one's a little different in the sense that I think almost like all the stars line up. That's why, to me, that's why he can behave this way, that he's willing to help others. And I just wonder what happened if one of the stars wasn't lining up. What happened if he's crippled for life? Is that going to, make him feel the same way, that he want to continue to help the others? I don't know.
Yeah, the what if question is always a interesting one. Yeah, but I guess we have to do story on what actually happened. Now, what if?
Right.
What if? You can speculate all kinds of, it never ends.
Well, I think that's the thing. We're drawing strength on what transpired, right? And sometimes we extrapolate, just add more spice and sauce to the situation to feed our own perception, I guess. I feel like he, it's a simple story. He got hurt. He got hurt real bad. And yes, there were stars lined up in the fact that, he his friend didn't get knocked out and he was sent to the right hospital, was sent to the right hospital so that he can have the brain surgery, right? Mm-hmm. But I think at the end, choosing to be in the helping sector, is as he called it, came from this situation. So, it's like there could be stories. I mean, that's not what our podcast is about. There could be stories where the opposite happened, that they ended up being homeless because they just can't
Actually,
hold themselves out.
that's a very good point. That every downward spiral probably began with some sort of event or a bad habit, addiction or debt, financial situation. Something negative happened in someone's life, and that created a turning point. And the decision is what to do about that at that point can dictate where you go down to that spiral, or you get out of it.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to showcase where, yes, you can get out of it, as opposed to the other side, I guess.
But we also experimented at the beginning of the episode. I think we'll call it what do we call it?
The good news.
Did you know?
Good
news.
People liked it.
Yeah, I think it's cute.
Feedback.
I do think we need to have something of short format to go through things. So what's next?
We had the Johnsons.
2 episodes, part 1, part 2.
And they're our first in-studio guests.
Other than ourselves. Yeah.
We're not guests.
Yeah, we're not guests. Okay. Yeah, I think that those went very well. So great job on the interview. But,
Thank you.
You have quite a bit of advantage because you know them pretty well. But the question we're probing, and it felt like in a living room, listen to friends having a conversation with a little bit more formality, because you're an interviewer, right? I've noticed that Denise is a very good speaker. She's a very good speaker. I guess what I'm saying is her speech pays very well with her internal thought process, that it roll out naturally without a lot of skipping and at a good pace. For one, I can tell you, I roll out fast, and my thought gets ahead of my IO, right? Can't keep up, and so sometimes words come out wrong, or my mind decides to go in a different direction, and my mouth can't catch up. And there is that kind of dynamics oftentimes in people's speech and interview. And she also doesn't have a whole lot of vocalized pauses. So needless to say, very little editing needed in terms of taking out those things. It sounded really good on the audio podcast.
What do you think?
Now, just one quick observation. You have the part 1 and part 2, right? The view doesn't really tell the story, but I think if you change the cover differently, so
get
people
more view.
I think you will, because to me it's like, okay, these 2 same video. If you don't know this part,
felt like same,
you watched it already, you can just skip it over.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good observation. Yeah. One thing we learn about YouTube is cover is what get the clicks, right? And if you don't do a good job on the cover, and there's all kinds of neat trick that the viewers may not realize that YouTubers do. Next time, look at the thumbnails when they pop up and give you different YouTube episodes to watch. Look at the expression of the people. There's always some sort of face on there, and some sort of eye candy, or people with very extreme expression.
The shock and appall.
Yeah, and even heavily infographics edited with the shock and awe value.
Or big fonted words, bold words of some kind of
Those are all clickbaits. But sometimes, I would say many times, that once you click on it, the content doesn't match the intensity. Yeah. Well, of the cover.
You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
But they get views.
Get views. I think it was easy to do this interview because there's so much backstory that we know, and just the real emotions, because when you work when you're serving the refugees day in, day out like they do, There are bound to be a lot of stories, and I think there are so much more we haven't even covered. So much more about what they do, and it's you'll be even more like impressed with just how much they press forward. You know, it's neat that they get all the donations and furniture, but you know, David and Denise, they had to. One story they told me, they had to go pick up furniture. Somebody's, I guess their rental house is being revamped because whoever left a huge mess. So they went to move a sofa out in this cockroach infested place, and you know, just having to even go in there to see all that just to get a donated sofa out.
I think they deserve their own reality TV show.
Yeah, they do.
That's the format you're talking about, because it's always new stories that happen all the time.
Yes.
And you know, so
Yes.
yeah, so it's they do have a lot of material there, but you know, the most important thing is they come from a very good place.
Yes.
I think it will attract the audience that fit the profile for our podcast. Will like their story.
We should do another episode with them just about you know, sharing food. They're such foodies, and I've learned about, what is it, happy eggs, heritage eggs. I learned about, you know, smoked meats, and they just love cooking and sharing food, and always have something going on.
Yeah, and the food, we probably will have like a different, you know, maybe like the next season, if you will, maybe even different seasons. You know, the seasons like multiple episodes. So we're focusing on, you know, doing good, right, or doing good to help yourself. That sort of focus, and maybe in the next episode we can focus on other kind of good in life, not necessarily, you know. Related to helping people, but just enjoying the good that God has presented in life. Food being one, you know, and you mentioned food as a expression of the love language, right? So maybe when we move to those episodes, we will do that again, but focus on that. Okay, who else do we have?
Then we had Scott Lambie with the with the African Children's Choir.
Yeah, so this is going to be, I'm the one who enlisted them. They're a great couple. I knew them from Lake Hills Church, and they're one of those people that really just, you know, they were going very well in their career trajectory, and then just took a completely right turn. He's right because
it's good. Correct.
Took a completely right turn and doing something to help the impoverished child. That's their focus. And they've been working with children even at church, but now they are full-time ministry, and they went to Africa, right? And their first stop, actually there's a lot more backstory to their story. I think their house got burned down.
In Africa?
No, in the U.S. And that made their decision easy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think they share that anyhow. But now they're they're in Africa helping children.
Is that not a sign or what? You're going.
Yeah.
Let nothing hold you back. Poof.
That's what we heard from them when they came to us first time at Lake Hills. This has happened, you know, this is where I think God is taking us, you know, would you support us? So we supported them, and I think it's a great story. We visited African, did you come with us? African Children's Choir? Okay. Well, you probably saw in the video the performance, and they went to different churches, North America, met a lot of people. Then he went along, and through that whole Africa experience in Uganda, they ended up adopting several African American children.
Not American, just African. children.
They're not American.
Right.
Yeah, and then they immigrated them here. So they have a huge family. I mean, they have children of their own. So
They're really impressive in that when they hear the call,
then
they went all in.
yeah.
That's impressive.
And that brings us to the end of another exciting episode of Hello World. Please support our podcast by hitting the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to smash that like. Your likes will help our podcast reach more awesome people like you. Lastly, tap that notification bell to receive instant alert whenever we drop in a new episode. We can't wait to see you again on our next episode. Until then, keep on being a positive force in this world.